Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod. You can watch the show on the ThunderCast YouTube channel and listen to those audio versions anywhere you listen to podcasts. It is the week we have really finally been waiting on. It is the week of the home football opener for the 2025 football season. The conference is up for grabs, seemingly, after 1 week of college football action. I don't think we know a lot about any team currently in the Sun Belt Conference. The defending Sun Belt Conference champions are looking to take the field and make some noise inside Jones C. Edwards Stadium on Saturday. We're going to welcome in the Missouri State Bears. We've got all the stats, info, and analysis that you want in this preview. But first, you know how it is, man. We got to pay some bills. So give me a message from our sponsors at Leasure Oliver PLLC.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
Well, it's here. The long-awaited, highly anticipated home opener. Our buddies, the Kentucky Mash Boys, are coming down to cook up a whole mess of good food that we're going to talk about in a little bit. It's a home opener, baby. Is there anything? It's like a holiday in Huntington, West Virginia.
I know.
The stadium opens up. Everything is so Kelly green and awesome. And we get to play football. We get to watch our guys play football. So with that being said, this Marshall Football Week 2 preview is brought to you by Dead Meat Society. And this week, we're talking about the Missouri State Bears coming into Jones C. Edwards Stadium to take on our Thundering Herd. The game, of course, is going down Saturday, September the 6th at 6 p.m., and it's going on ESPN Plus as well. But if you got a pulse, gas in your tank, and a little bit of money in your pocket, take your ass to Huntington, West Virginia, because it's going to be one big party, and we're going to watch the Herd roll out to a big dub. The game has been dubbed a Kelly Greenout by the athletic department. So like Russ said on previous episode this week, ditch the 2000s era Hunter Green, go to Glenn's, go to the stadium store, go to the bookstore, get yourself a brand new Kelly Green t-shirt and take full part in the festivities this weekend. Let's talk about the game. The Power Index, ESPN Power Index loves the Herd this week. 85.7% chance to win. Vegas has us at minus 10.5 points, which is a little surprising. Over under 55.5 if you're into that sort of thing, which Vegas thinks the score is going to be about 38 to 28-ish, if that is in that ballpark. Russ, couple of quick notes on this game, just as we get into it from broad strokes. Of course, I've mentioned it before. This is the home opener for the Herd, and I'd like to throw a great stat at you real quick. Marshall University has not lost a home opener since 2010. We've got one hell of a streak going on at home openers, and there have been some Power 5 opponents in there too, by the way. So this is not just cupcakes all the time. This is the first ever matchup, though, between Missouri State and the Herd. And, of course, if it's a Kelly Greenout, we're debuting those beautiful, gorgeous Kelly Green helmets. But I think a couple other things we got to talk about real quick. Missouri State is making their first year in the FBS. They just transitioned to Conference USA. It was a rough one last week for the Bears. They're 0-1 on the season. They took one on the chin at the hands of USC out in LA last week, 73-13. But they did have some positive things. They put up 13 points against USC on the road. Yep. So a couple of notes there to take. Just perk up a little bit. But the last thing, the biggest thing, it's the ThunderCast tailgate, man. That's what you really need to know about before you walk into the game. Let's talk about that tailgate.
Yeah, so we have on the menu pulled pork. We have on the menu mac and cheese. We have baked beans. We have pork belly burn-ins. I was saving that. I wanted to put it right in the middle. And we have whole bunch of yard bird, man. We're going to have thighs, we're going to have legs, and we're going to have wings. Man. And, we'll have some other stuff. We'll have some little desserts and snacks and things there, bottled water. Bring your own beverage of choice other than that. And, KD, we cannot have all this be free for the fans if it wasn't for our sponsors. And this first game, just like every game, is going to be landscapingbyhillcrest.com. They signed on to do, just like last year, every single tailgate that we have. But this first game, because it's so big, also our friends at Raleigh Court Mobile Home Park, Mr. Don Blevins, is also sponsoring this. So they're located in Daniels, West Virginia. We talk about landscaping by Hillcrest all the time. So Daniels, West Virginia, they have lots where you can put things, trailers there if you want, or they already have trailers there. So if you are looking for a place maybe around quick travel to some of those great rivers around there, or the New River Gorge, all the different things, really close to Lewisburg. So if you're looking for a place like that, you can get up with Raleigh Court Mobile Home Park.
Yeah, it's a great location to maybe you and a bunch of buddies to get a little camp together type deal, or just to get away for those weekend fishing trips, hunt trips, those type of things. If you're going to go do some hiking and camping and all that kind of stuff, we really appreciate Don for coming on for yet another year of sponsoring, helping sponsor that home opener tailgate. And of course, Landscaping by Hillcrest has been so good to us over the years, a multi-year sponsor now.
Yeah.
They are the ones that are really helping us keep these tailgates free for anybody that wants to come over. If you're in the market for any type of landscaping project, we're not talking about just mowing grass and pulling weeds. We're talking about a beautiful outdoor kitchen. You want to revamp the look of your outdoor space. You don't need to call anybody else other than Landscaping by Hillcrest.
They do pools, they do fences, they have this thing called rubber stone that they will take what they say cover your ugly. But if you've got busted up concrete and stuff like that, it's a great product. Go on landscapingbyhillcrest.com. Last thing I'm going to say about that, just go on there, look at the photos, and you don't need to hear what we have to say about it. You're just going to see that they are the premier landscaping outfit in the tri-state area.
Yeah, the pictures will sell themselves. Now, look, we've talked about this tailgate and what's on the menu. But we got to tell people where they are. Now, I will say this. We just put out our fan guide for 2025 just the other day. It's up on YouTube right now. It is a YouTube exclusive. But you can find out how to elevate your Marshall football game day experience. That's the title of the episode. And it's got all the information that you need. Tickets, hotels, restaurants, where to park, tailgates, tickets. I said tickets. That's how important that is. Gear, the monuments around it. Anything you want to do for your Marshall game day is in that video. But above all, it's the C lot, and that's where you can find the ThunderCast tailgate. When you're in the lots looking around in relation to the stadium, the giant video board, that end zone, our tailgate spots are essentially right underneath that video board. You cannot miss us. We've got 6 spots right on the back corner of the C lot. We'll be the guys walking around with 2 smokers there on Saturday. Feel free to come up, join the tailgate. You don't need an invite. If you think you do, this is your invite to come and tailgate with the ThunderCast.
We'll be doing ThunderCast Live, powered by ignite.link. Jed's going to be over there just like we do every tailgate. We're going to be over there. You never know who's going to stop by and be on ThunderCast Live. We've had professional players that are Marshall alums. We've had people from the athletic department. We've had people from the Big Green. We've had the athletic director himself has stopped in on ThunderCast Live, powered by ignite.link, and I think that we're going to see that again this Saturday.
Certainly feels like it.
Yeah.
It certainly feels like it.
But also, we're going to have a guest over there, and they are the sponsor of this series now for the rest of the season, these game previews. But Dead Meat Society is going to be at our tailgate.
Yeah, Dead Meat Society. If you guys end up watching the Elevate Your Marshall Game Day Experience video, visiting fans, or just herd fans that are just like our content, we appreciate you guys watching. Absolutely, we do. Dead Meat Society is a wonderful, I call it a lifestyle brand, because when you're into that sort of cooking, smoking meats, tailgating type thing, it's a culture and it's a lifestyle that you love to be a part of. So I call them a lifestyle brand, but they are a really cool place to go. Deadmeatsociety.com. You can sign up for their newsletter called Dead Meat Spam.
Dead Meat Spam. Yeah.
Right.
It's weekly and it's free.
And it's right, and it's free, and you'll get things like tips and tricks on how recipes and gear recommendations and all that kind of stuff. And if you're into that or thinking about getting into that, deadmeatsociety.com is the number one spot for you to begin that journey. So I'd love to hear more from them if you got something lined up.
Ever since the discovery of fire, mankind has gathered around it to prepare food. And today we enjoy fellowship with family, friends, and even strangers as we cook and grill. At home on the weekends, at tailgates for sporting events, and just by ourselves to find inner peace. We have holidays centered around the custom of grilling. And now there is a society for those of us who like to grill, who stay up all night to get that smoke ring just right, who share their gifts with others. The Dead Meat Society is here. Flame, family, community, feed everyone.
So once again, special thanks to the Dead Meat Society for sponsoring every single football game preview from now for the remainder of the season. They've been a big, big help to us keeping this content great for you guys as well. Looking forward to meeting those folks this Saturday. Russ, let's get in and talk about the game now. I love to get your bird's eye view of how you think this one might go down without getting into particulars. So, in keeping with that fashion, let me have it.
Well, it's a matchup of two teams that really want to have a big turnaround from their week one. You know, both were on the road and both faced perennial, elite teams, and both were on lopsided scores. So both teams are going in here, got something to prove, but they're coming to the Joan.
Mm-hmm.
It's not at their house. So they've got their work cut out for them 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, most certainly. This is not Wrigley Field. These are not the friendly confines. This is Joan C. Edwards Stadium, a place where football victories have now in recent years become more of the norm, like it used to be. And like we've been saying for the past number of weeks on social media, it's a 90s vibe again around Marshall, and that has far less to do with the players and the teams as it does the fans and the vibe around the fan base. And they are such a big part of the environment inside of Joan C. Edwards Stadium, what makes it so difficult of a place to go and win a game as an opposing fan. This is going to be one that I feel like the Herd might have to put on a bit of a show. Not because they have to per se, but because they need to figure out more about who they are as a team, which might just end up meaning some late touchdowns get scored because we're still running the actual offense rather than trying to get out of the game type deal.
Yeah.
You're right. This is two teams that are on the wrong side of lopsided scores. Neither team wants to go 0-2, and both teams are hungry for that win. Let's talk about some of these Missouri State players that we're going to have to pay attention to as we head into this game on Saturday and dig deeper into this Dead Meat Society Marshall football preview. For this Missouri State Bears offense, it starts really, really heavily with the quarterback. Number 12 quarterback Jacob Clark, 6'5", 220-pound, wait for it, 7th-year senior. The dude's been around a minute. He spent more time in college than I did. Well,
I don't know about that.
I know about that. I definitely know about that. Last week, 16 of 24 for 147 yards, threw a touchdown pass, had 2 picks, and was sacked 5 times against the Trojans. That's not really a good depiction of what he can do. So let me talk about them 2024 stats. 262 of 376 last year, over 3,600 yards passing last year for Jacob Clark, 26 touchdowns and 6 INTs on the year. Now, granted, this was FCS level stuff, but this just shows you that the kid can sling. The man can sling it. If you've been in college for 7 years, I can't call you kid. Anyway, he's a drop back passer. This is not really a read option type dude, dual threat dude like what we see on our rosters. This is far more of a drop back type passer. And we're going to talk about number 2, the running back Shamari Lawrence, 6 foot, 210-pound senior, 12 carries last week for 50 yards. That's pretty good average against USC, 4.2 yards per carry. Over his career, though, he's rushed for about 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns. He's made a few more stats through the air in the receiving game, but nothing really to be a difference maker. Much more of a runner than a weapon out of the backfield. A couple of wideouts we're going to feature. Number 15, wide receiver Tristan Gardner, 6'2", 180-pound freshman. 2 receptions last week for 39 yards and the touchdown. Leads the Bears 19.5 yards per reception. And then number 0, Jamari Robinson, 6'1", 165-pound junior. 3 receptions for 30 yards last week, 10 yards per reception. Those are the 4 guys I want to feature. I know there's some other guys that we can talk about because also, guys, I will mention that Russ did an episode with I can't remember the guy's name.
It's Maddox.
Maddox.
Yeah, Maddox.
Maddox from The Growl, a Missouri State podcast, getting to know the enemy as Russ is doing this week. So he featured a few more players. I know you got some notes on some other guys. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, so if you've not seen that, I had mentioned that we had 2, and there's actually 3 former Marshall receivers on there. 1 tight end, Hayden Hagler, and he got his first collegiate touchdown on the 50th anniversary game on November 14th, 2020. And then Antonio Robinson and Sean Reese are 2 receivers that are on the roster, and both of those played in the Frisco Bowl there in December 2023. So all 3 played for Marshall, transferred over at different times. Hagler went to Jackson State before he went there, and the other 2, I believe, went directly to Missouri State.
Yeah, so pretty cool. You got some Marshall tie. All guys have already been inside Jones C. Edwards Stadium before. Hagler actually played and caught a touchdown pass, so it's a little bit of a homecoming for him in particular. I got a handful of bullet points on this Missouri State offense, obviously from last week, because in this day of college football, especially at our level, you can't deduce too much from a year ago versus now because of the portal and things like that. So we can only really talk about last week. Now, last week they only gained 224 yards on USC, which isn't terrible considering they're a first year. That was their first game in FBS, and you're going up against a historic power that is one of those teams that, if they choose, just have unlimited funds. I mentioned before that they're more of a drop-back passing team, so it'll be interesting to see what our defense does knowing that. 3 turnovers again that they had against USC. 2 interceptions were thrown, and they fumbled once. 6 penalties for 60 yards, just 3 of 14 on third down. Marshall was kind of similar in that arena as well. But this does tell me that they will turn the football over. And then despite, getting that touchdown, a couple field goals, that kind of thing, it was a really lopsided score. So I haven't talked defense yet, but just know that there is an opportunity here, it looks like, for Marshall to get some extra possessions via turnover. You got anything else about this offense?
Just that when I was on with Maddox, I asked him about, offensive mix, and he said that he expected them to try to throw a lot more than they were going to run. Obviously, they did that a lot. You mentioned all the stats, 3,600. I think he was 5th in the country or 4th in the country amongst FCS. 70% completion percentage.
Yeah,
on the year.
Almost a career guy, 70% guy, not just 1 year.
Yeah. So look for them to try to throw a lot against us. So we'll talk about that matchup here in a little bit.
Yeah, of course, that's not entirely surprising. When you hear that offensive coordinator name, Petrino, that kind of speaks to that type of offense. Now, it's not Bobby Petrino, but you get it. But if you're expecting a pass-heavy offense coming at you, I hope Boogie's perking up. I hope Marvay's perking up, and Cam and those guys are like, great, this is our time to shine. We're going to make some moves. We're going to make some waves and come down with a couple footballs. That's what I want to see inside the Joan on Saturday. Let's flip the script and let's talk about this Bears defense. I'm going to feature 4 more guys, some at each level yet again, because I think that it's worth noting kind of who you may be going up against at every level. I'm going to start backwards and move frontwards. And the team was led in tackles last week by number 0, so both zeros are being featured. Safety McGuire Neal, 6'1", 200-pound senior. 9 total tackles last week, 5 solo. But all of 2024, he only had 6 tackles. So he's already outdone his entire season in just 1 game last week. One note about McGuire, he's from Zephyr Hills, Florida. That's literally like 2 minutes away from where I am right now. So that's pretty cool, man. I didn't expect to see that. Then we're going to go to a second safety, number 16, J.J. Neal, 6'2", 180-pound junior, 5 total tackles last week, 2 of those solo. Moving up a level to the linebacking core, we're going to feature number 6 linebacker Jared Lloyd. He was second on the team last week. Big build, 6'3", 240. He's a junior, had 6 tackles last week against USC. And then that defensive lineman that we're going to feature had a really, really great game. Definitely one you're going to want to keep an eye on. Number 50, defensive lineman Mitchell Toney, 6'2", 275-pounder, 3 tackles, 2 solo, had a sack and a forced fumble. 2 impact plays from one guy on that defensive line. So impact plays total for these Bears, just the 1 sack, 4 tackles for loss, a pass defended, 1 forced fumble, and a fumble recovery. Now, the bad. They did allow nearly 600 yards of offense to USC, 597 yards, and 73 points in just 27 minutes and 29 seconds time of possession for USC. Any notes for this defense that you have that I might not have mentioned?
If I remember correctly, Maddox said they would be in a 4-3 base.
Okay, I was curious.
Yeah, and he did mention on that show as well that their head coach is a defensive guy. So much like Tony, his career was in defense. This is his first head coaching job. So he's going to be very hands-on with the defense, but he has always been that base 4-3 guy.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, and if you can remember, correct me if I am wrong, but did Maddox also not say that the coach's name's Coach Beard, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was the defensive coordinator. Yes. Yeah.
Their defensive coordinator, not just he was, I guess, elevated to the head coaching job.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk special teams really quickly. They've got a really good kicker, I think. It looks like it. Yeah. Number 36, Yusuf Obeid, 2 of 2 last week with a long of 46 in a very unfriendly environment in Los Angeles, California, Coliseum. 1 of 1 on extra points. They had 2 punters split duty last week, both averaged together around 40.7 yards per punt on 6 total punts. Nothing really blew me away in the return game, really, so there's not much to really talk about there. I guess we can look to move into our keys to victory in this Dead Meat Society Marshall football preview.
I got one thing about special teams here, and it's about their kicker, Obeid. I went and looked up. Last year, he was 11 of 12 on the season. The 1 miss was a block.
Wow. Okay.
So, and when I talked to Maddox, I said, 45, and he goes, oh yeah, he just hit a couple at USC, and I was like 50, and he said, yeah, he's hit some beyond 50. So I look here, this was just last year. He had 1 that was 50, a 48, a 45, and then the rest were shorter that he had. The 1 that was blocked, it does not say on the attempt on the distance, but 11 of 12 last year, already 2 of 2 this year. He looks like he's a pretty good kicker. That's something to watch out for.
So what that tells you is you can't call it automatic because nothing's automatic. But if they get in the red zone, it's a really good chance at points in some capacity. So it really looks like Marshall's going to try to have to keep him past the 35. Yeah. So if they get inside the 35, they're really within range to score some points. That is something to look out for. Now let's get into our keys to victory in this Dead Meat Society Marshall football preview. What's your number 1 key to victory for the Herd this week, Russ?
It's contain Jacob Clark. You talked about the stats. I talked about the stats. Can't let him throw it all over the field. In 2024, he had 8 straight games of both 69% completions and at least 2 TDs. But 5 of those were 3 TDs and 1 was 4. all the games that saw him complete in the 70s, nearly all of them, and several of them were even in the 80%. One game was like 84.8% or something like that. So if he gets going, it's hard to stop. He can pick you apart. We need to take away the Jacob Clark threat. Now, I'm not going to talk about how, because that's a two-parter. That's another point that I have. But let me tell you why we want to take this away from him. Those 8 games listed for Clark and those keys to victory that I just said there, they were 8-0. The games that he was at 60% or less, and 60% is a still good completion percentage, they were 0-4.
Okay.
So, causation, correlation, can't really say if he completes 60 or less, we're going to automatically win. But it is harder for their offense to get going if we can prevent him from, doing his thing.
Yeah, this is something that obviously I don't like to hear, but what I do hear is this is a big opportunity for our defensive back room to really make some noise on Saturday. I know a lot of those guys, you could tell in the post-game press conference, in the weekly press availability this week, if you listened, Cam Smith in particular felt like they let some things they beat themselves a little bit. And if you're following social media, some of those guys are like itching to make some plays. And I think they need that. I think Boogie and Marvay and Sweeting and all those guys, they need to be feeding off of each other's energy. And there's really nothing better than a pass-heavy offense to give them a lot of opportunities to try to make some plays to do that, to get that going for them. And I love that. I'm probably going to start speaking into one of your keys to victory here in a minute. Since you brought up taking away the quarterback, I'm going to talk about my number 2 key to victory this week, and that's blitz from frickin' everywhere. If this 3-3-5 allows for such great disguise and so much flexibility that you really afford yourself the opportunity to not give away where that blitz is coming from. I saw some really, really positive things from Cannon Lewis this past weekend at Georgia. He was close a couple of times. I saw some great pass rush from Paul Hudson a couple of times. I saw some great rush from other. It's just that Georgia is so big and quick. They pick that stuff up, and I'm not so sure that Missouri State is going to be able to pick those up as effectively. I'm not saying we're just going to run by them untouched.
Right.
I'm saying it's going to be much harder for those Missouri State defenders to pick up those blitzes rather than Georgia defenders. That's just a difference in the caliber. You can't compare the two, just like you can't compare what we played against. You can't compare it. So you got to blitz the hell out of this guy, and you got to get him off his spot. You got to keep him on the move and uncomfortable and steady hits on the quarterback, right? That's how I see you have to do that, so much so that it's my number 2 key to victory. What's your number 2?
Well, it was the same exact thing. When you said I'm going to start speaking into it, I knew that was what you were going to say. And I said, cry havoc and release the dogs of war. We need to be flying all over from everywhere, like you just said. We need to disrupt him, Clark, I'm speaking of, with sacks, force hurried throws. That's the situation where that completion percentage comes down because he's got to force something before the timing route because it's what just happened to us. Ja'Kai Long could not throw where he was wanting to throw when he wanted to throw it because he already had somebody in his face.
Yeah.
Del Rio Wilson could not throw when he wanted to throw it, where he wanted to throw it, because he already had somebody's face. They got flushed out of the pocket. The play breaks down. The timing of the routes are wonky at that point. We need to do the same thing. We need to hit him with a bunch of sacks and hurried throws, and I think that will help with my number 1 key to victory. That's why I said it's a 2-parter, containing Jacob Clark.
Right. Yeah. I mean, defensively, that's got to be your game plan, is to get hits and such sound responsibility on the quarterback. I felt like we let some things slip away from a responsibility standpoint last week. I mean, those option plays showed that. I don't think that's going to be a point of emphasis for this offense this week. And if it is, bring it on kind of thing.
Well, Clark does run a little every now and then.
I don't think he's Stockton, though.
He's not going to be Stockton. He's not going to be Stockton. He's not got the Georgia offensive line either.
Yeah.
But
That's what I'm getting at.
But he does, for anyone keeping track at home, he does have a record of running the ball. So he's not just a pocket passer. We will have to look at that.
Yeah, he's just more of a pocket passer.
Right.
But my number one key to victory this week, it's offense. It's attack on the ground. We saw some good things out of multiple backs against Georgia. And just like I said with this Missouri State offensive line not being able to pick up the blitzes effectively, I'm not so sure that this defensive front of Missouri State is going to be as effective at containing this stable of running backs. I mean, you heard Coach Tony Gibson say it. Justin William Thomas had some great runs. He saw great things out of him. He thought he ran really hard, as did I. I saw really good things from Joshawn Barbie, a lot of flash that if we'd have had a little bit better of a block, if we'd have had an extra half second, we could have had some big plays there. It's just speed kills, and I'm not so sure that we're going to go up that same level of team speed this week as we just came off of playing. So for me, it is run with the backs and the quarterbacks. There's just too many running backs on this roster to contain for 60-plus minutes if needed. What is your number 3?
Well, it's a mirror. I said we need to run the ball, and we need to run it well. Look for Marshall to show a lot more of this Rod Smith offense with lots of runs and QB runs. It's exactly what you just said. I went on to kind of do a little prediction here. I said I'm expecting 40-plus carries and over 200 yards on the ground. Yeah. Now, if we have that, who wouldn't want to average 5 yards a carry, right? But we ran 31 times against Georgia. I expect us to run a little bit more in this, and I'm figuring we're going to be around that 40 mark on carries.
Yeah, and as I believe we should, right? If this offense is going to be predicated on the run, it stands to reason you better run, and you better run a lot. And I think you're going to see a far more chunk plays this week. I think you're going to see a few big ones get busted and to the house. You might even be staring at the possibility of 2 100-yard rushers, that type of scenario, if there are some big, long runs that get busted open. My number 3 key to victory, it's not a key to victory because that means what you have to do to win the game. But it's more of what I think might happen. And I mentioned this earlier in the episode. I think you have to pour it on because you're still trying to figure out who can most effectively run this offense. And there are guys still vying for snaps, vying for playing time. You're trying to separate yourself in a real life game time scenario. I think you've just got to pour it on and make Missouri State show you what they've got. You've got to do that. It's so early in the season to say this is a gut check game, but it kind of is because of all the newness and all these guys that have to figure out where they fit into this roster and in this offense and defense. I think you got to force Missouri State to stop you, and you've just got to pour it on for 60 minutes. And if the score's lopsided, so be it. If the score is close and you still had to pour it on, well, it was merited, right? But one way or the other, I don't think you let your foot off the gas at all for 60 minutes. You just put in player after player after player to see what they've got. What's your number? I'm sorry. What's your number?
I was just going to say it's a really good point because if you're up and we're trying to see out of these 3 quarterbacks, you don't want to go in and say, well, go in there and hand it off for a quarter and see what you got. You're going to have to. And, that's just one of those conversations you have with the coach to coach after the game's like, look, I'm trying to get my team right. I've
got a conference to win.
There's no disrespect meant, Coach, but, we had to keep throwing because I got to see A, B, and C.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
My number 4 is to play your game. You didn't get to do that at Georgia, and now you really need to do that. And that's everything that you've said, everything that I've said up here. It's going to be more playing the game. You're going to be able, hopefully, to have more than half a second to decide, here's where I need to throw, because you're not going to have all game long somebody in the backfield the moment you snap the ball. You're not going to have SEC defensive backs, blanketing your receivers. So those quick throws aren't available for you anyway. We need to be able to play our game, and I think this will be an opportunity to do so.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Being able to actually see what they can do against more of a peer institution, which is something I mentioned in the recap from Georgia. Let's see what this offense can do against a peer school or more of a peer school. I still think Marshall is probably a slight notch above Missouri State just because of there's still quite a bit of players that are used to competing at the FCS level. And there's nothing against them. We were there at one time. It's not a slight, but it is what it is. My number 4 key to victory is don't break the rhythm. If you get into a scenario where one quarterback or one running back has the offense freaking clicking, leave it alone until you are comfortably ahead. And then you can start to substitute some guys in. But if this thing is running like a well-oiled machine, don't turn that machine off. Don't do that. If you're up by 4 touchdowns, okay, I get it. You can do that, because some things went really right on the offense and defense. Vegas sees this as a 10.5-point spread. They don't think it's going to be a blowout either way. So I'm saying if it happens to turn into one, well, then you can slow the machine down. But leave it alone if it's rocking and rolling.
I could be wrong, but I think we had opened at 8.5, then it moved to 9.5, and then 10.5. So it has trended up that way a little bit, but they still 10 to 11 points is not a blowout. And, that's less than 2 scores. Obviously, it is looking like that's the way they see it. I particularly don't at this point.
Yeah.
But that's why they play the games, right?
Well, yeah. And we are a little biased, admittedly. This ain't the Bearcast. I mean, it's the Thundercast. We're obviously going to be a little bit biased to our guys, but we also know that playing a team like Georgia is not an accurate depiction of who you are as a team, just as playing a team like USC is not an accurate depiction of who you are either.
That's right. All the respect in the world to Missouri State. This is one of those things I never saw it being like blowout, like 73-13 like they had against USC. I never saw it like that at all. And there's potential because they have a good offense. They have good players. They have a good defense. It's not an FCS school. They went 8-4 there last year. 2 of their losses was to North Dakota and South Dakota, who are perennial, in the finals. That was their last 2 games. They're 8-2 going into that. The other 2 games they lost to was I know Montana was one of them, and I cannot remember the other one for the life of me right now. Ball State, I thought, is who it was.
Well, the point is they're not a horrible team, right? People just look at the schedule and they go, I don't know that logo very well. They must be bad. Or they go, oh, they're in the Conference USA. They're horrible. Like I get it that, you want to feel that way a little bit, but just because.
Yeah, they got that Judy stink on them,
That takes a while to wash off.
It does.
It really does. Let's talk about some MVPs, though. I won't screw it up this week. I'm sure you got offense, defense, and special teams that you're looking at.
I do, and I also picked an overall if you needed
cool.
me.
Okay, wrinkled it in there. So give me that offensive MVP for you,
I see it,
plural.
I see it being Joshawn Barbie this week, and he seems to be that guy that is going to be running and catching out of the backfield, because that's his game. I see him being heavily involved in the offense, even though we still expect to see 4, 5, 6 running backs in this offense. But I look for him to break a couple. I look for him to be involved in the passing game and the running game, and that's who I'm going with.
Yeah, excellent pick. He is half of my MVP selection as well. Joshawn Barbie, I'm just a big fan of. I have been since in the preseason when we were doing the breakdowns and stuff like that. He was the one that had the most statistics to put on paper, and I just liked what I saw. And we saw a little bit more of it last week against Georgia. I think he's poised to have a big game. I also am going off of heavily what Tony Gibson said and what he liked out of Justin Williams-Thomas. So give me that duo of the running backs. And I hinted at it a little bit. This might be a 2 100-yard rusher game. I'm not calling it, but it wouldn't surprise me if it happens. Not to say that it's going to be those 2 guys either, but it just wouldn't surprise me. But out of the gate, based on what Tony says and what I like, I'm going with Justin Williams-Thomas and Joshawn Barbie as my offensive MVPs for week 2. Who you got for defense?
Braden Ward.
Nice.
I talked about pressure. He calls at least two directly with batted balls. 2 of the incompletions there on Gunner Stockton. And I think when we're talking about the game plan has to be creating pressure on here, you're going to see in a 3-3-5, you're going to have to see Braden Ward coming off the edge. And I really think that he makes that impact. Maybe there's a forced fumble that helps turn the game. Maybe it's those batted balls as a guy with his height and length that he has and the speed and athleticism that he has. Or maybe it's a couple of sacks that really just destroy a series for them. So give me Braden Ward on the defense.
That's an excellent pick. You know, he had impact on the game last week without really showing up in the stat line. There wasn't much. I don't even think he registered a tackle in the game.
He didn't,
but he was impactful in that game. And you just can't teach 6'6". He's very athletic. I'm hoping this is the breakout game for him in the eyes of a lot of Herd fans. Like, it's one thing to hear us talk about it. A lot of people need to see it first. I'm going Cannon Lewis. I saw a lot that I liked out of that kid last week, and I think this is a big-time breakout game for him. Coach Gibson was also very complimentary of him, saying this is the first game that he has seen really significant action, and he did it against the number 5 team in the country, played really, really well, and had it not been for some, let's face it, NFL prospects, he probably would have had a really nasty-looking stat line at the end of that game. I think he's got a couple of sacks written all over him. I think he's got a 10-tackle game written all over him. Like, he's one of the men in the middle that can really wreak some havoc. Katron Evans played well too. Katron might be able to suck up 2 of those blockers and free up or 2 of those offensive linemen and free up Cannon to get to that QB. I'm excited to see this guy cut loose in the game. So give me Cannon Lewis. Special teams, who you got?
Lorcan Quinn. You know, he didn't get a shot at a field goal in that game. If you saw the power in his legs on the kickoffs, the first one cleared the end zone. You know, the guy's got a leg on him. And, you know, last week, MVP of the game for us came from special teams. This could be one of those, especially, you know, if it turns into a shootout and you have 2 good kickers going back and forth, it could end up being him. For overall, but at least from special teams, I am hoping that our punter is not the special team or the MVP. I'm hoping that it would rather come from Mr. Quinn at field goals.
Well, I'd rather I'm okay with the average staying high. Let's just get with the total number of punts shrunken by like 2/3. That would be great. This could be low-key a hashtag college kicker showdown, right? Yusuf Obeid and Lorcan Quinn. This could turn into one of those who's going to kick the longest one of the day type field goal scenario, and that would be pretty cool in its own right, a little game within the game. I'm going return game this week. Give me DeMarcus Lacey in the punt return game because this ain't Georgia. You know, this is an opportunity to really ignite that Jones C. Edwards Stadium crowd with a couple of quick moves and taking one to the house. I don't know why. I just have a gut feeling that Lacey might make some noise this week in the punt return game. Who's your overall MVP this week?
I've got Barbie on the offense. I think that we're going to see an offensive breakout. I think we need to see an offensive breakout, so that's why I'm going with that.
Yeah, excellent pick. If I didn't think about this, but I'll go with that, one of those running backs as well. Based on all the talk around this explosive offense and all the hype and all of everything that we were all waiting to see, and we didn't really see any of it against Georgia until the tail end of the game, and that was through the air, not so much on the ground. So I think you're right. You do need to see it. The fans need to see it and get a glimmer of what this offense can be. So excellent pick. I'll just echo that. Give me Joe Sean or one of the other backs. How about a score prediction this week?
So when I was thinking about this number came in my head, and it's probably because of what I picked last week, only on the inverse. I picked 42-17, and I decided that I was going to flip-flop that, and I was going to go 42-17 Herd on this one. Now, do they have the capability of putting more points up, talking about Missouri State? Yes. We do too. We have that capability. We feel like that we're going to come out and try to make a statement on offense. But I'd like to see it somewhere in that, you know, more than 3 scores, don't have to worry about winning the game in the last drive, definitely the last quarter type deal. So give me 42-17 Marshall.
Yeah, if I was entering this game as a fan from my viewpoint and how I do things and think, all right, we know who our guys are. We're not worrying about getting multiple players in and running the offense to the very end, potentially. My score prediction probably would have been a little bit lower. Oddly enough, I'm 42-17 Herd yet again.
Wow.
I think we're going to see offense all game long, and I think you're going to see a couple of late touchdowns. I mean, you might even see a deal where all three quarterbacks get in the game and all three account for at least one touchdown. You know, I can't say that you'll see defensive scores and special team scores. Those are just really, really hard to accomplish. You could. Something just leaped off the page to me yet again, 42-17 Herd. That's what I got too, man. You got any final words in this Dead Meat Society Marshall football preview this week?
Yeah, if any Missouri State fans find themselves watching this, I hope that you are making the trip. And if you are, please come by our tailgate. You know, we mentioned that it is opposing fan friendly and that we're going to have just an incredible spread. Do not feel like, well, I don't want to go over there. They probably don't want to have, you know, somebody from the opposing fans.
Yes,
no,
we do.
We do. Come by, get some good Herd hospitality. We're going to treat you as well as you've ever been treated before and after the game. During the game, we're going to hope that your team loses against our team. That's just it.
Yeah.
You know, other than that, though, we're going to make sure that everyone treats you right, and especially us. So please come by our tailgate. Enjoy the game. Hope there's no injuries. Best of luck to you guys. We just hope we come out on top.
Yeah, and I'm going to speak directly to the Missouri State fan base as well. Do yourself a favor. Go watch the fan guide video that we put out. It is a YouTube exclusive. Once again, elevate your Marshall football game day experience. It's roughly 35, 40 minutes or something like that, but it gives you everything you need to know about getting the most out of your weekend in Huntington. And Russ is right. Yeah, we want visiting fans at our tailgates, and everybody that tailgates around us does too. You know, you will be hard pressed to find a Herd fan that will not welcome an opposing fan over to their tailgate. It's just that we're going to have some really, really kick-ass food, and we want to share it with you guys. So please, all that we ask of anybody that comes to any of our tailgates is to provide yourself with your own beverages of choice. We will provide you with all the food and fellowship and hanging out that you want to have. We just can't afford to hydrate everybody, you know.
Well, and when we say can't afford to, it's not as much about the money from our sponsors situation. We just don't want to get involved in all that.
Yeah.
But we also too could not possibly predict what everybody would like to drink and have enough of that on hand. Bring it, we'll store it for you, and that is your contribution to a very kick-ass tailgate that otherwise is totally free, thanks to our wonderful sponsors. I've got to shout them out again. Landscaping by Hillcrest, Raleigh Court, Mobile Home Park. Thank you very much for this tailgate that is coming up. And, you know, for this preview brought to you by Dead Meat Society.
Yeah. Last thing I'm going to say, and then you can take us out of here. I am issuing a challenge to the Missouri State fan base to find this episode and watch this episode, because the Georgia fan base threw down the freaking gauntlet when it comes to the ThunderCast. They pumped up the numbers on our preview and our recap so much, left so many comments and so many, like, it was awesome to be able to have so many opposing fans enjoy our content and tell us that, like, man, we appreciated that. I think a lot of times people log on to opposing fan base podcasts and they're expecting just an uber homer take all the time. And we try to be very honest and very real. So Missouri State, the challenge has been issued. Georgia is leading the pack, and you've got some work to do, guys. So you better click those links, leave those comments, like, and a new thing on YouTube. Hype the video. That's really cool. That's a cool thing you can do. Costs you nothing. You click one button and I guess it's not donate, but you get a running tally of points. So you hype the video, and the more points it has, the better it does in the algorithm. The more Missouri State fans we can reach, the more Middle Tennessee State fans we can reach, or the more Eastern Kentucky fans we can reach. Hype the video. That's a really cool thing that they do. Other than that, Russ, take us out of here.
Whether you see us at the Jack, whether you see us at the Dot, or whether you see us at the C Lot at Jones C. Edwards Stadium for this very, very good tailgate, No matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go herd.
Go herd. It's the Thundercast. We will see you Saturday in your Kelly Green with the Kentucky Mash Boys, a whole lot of herd fans, and a hell of a lot of good food. Later.